Welcome back to the Arbitrarium. This is going to be an a la carte episode. I'm Dave. I'm going to be your host for this episode, and with me are Garrett and Uncle Rezo, or Nick, as he likes to be called. Today we're going to be talking about cognitive ease, or cognitive easing, or cognitive fluency. They're all kind of the same thing.
I speak brain.
You see, you speak brain. But how easy is it for you to speak brain?
I don't know.
What languages do you speak in brain?
Brain?
There are dialects.
Brian.
Yeah, brain and Brian.
Okay. All right, fair enough. So cognitive ease is basically, the simplest definition is how easy it is for our brains to process certain information. We tend to sort of take the road most traveled. When it comes to our cognitive efforts, we settle into ruts and we try and follow the things that are the easiest to follow. And, those kinds of things get used in marketing all the time. That's why you see, a result of cognitive ease and marketing of all kinds of things is that idea of the lowest common denominator. That's basically what it boils down to. But I think the way that I described it not long ago is that it's basically kind of like the Overton window, but in your brain. So one of the reasons that, and they found this out with music in particular, one of the reasons that you'll hear in music certain songs over and over and over again, even though they're bad, is because it actually makes people like them more. And it's essentially because of cognitive ease. You hear it the first time, and you're like, this is fucking awful. And then you hear it the second time, and you're still like, this is fucking awful. But you hear it enough times, and it becomes something familiar. And because it becomes something familiar, you start to kind of like it a bit. And then eventually it's acceptable. And then maybe you actually like it, and then maybe you actually find it applaudable. It's like that sort of pernicious path that we go down whenever we're consistently introduced to things over and over again, and it's not really the result of whether or not the idea or whatever is good. It's just that it's become familiar, so we assimilate it into usually our identity or something like that.
Very brave new world.
It's acquiring a taste.
Yes, it is an acquired taste, but usually with cognitive ease, they're oftentimes they're talking about trying to make it as easy to understand as possible, so people are likely to grab onto it, because people tend to, whether or not an idea is good doesn't matter as much to people as whether or not they can regurgitate it and feel intelligent while they do that. We've talked about this with some people that we know, where somebody will be able to read something and comprehend it relatively well, but then when they go to employ it, there's some wires crossed. Something happens where they can't apply it, right? They can't apply it quite properly. So it's something like that.
It's kind of what happens when, kind of interpreting this as kind of jumping. All right. In any field of science that you dive into, you're going to need to have a framework built for you before you can really start exploring the space.
Mm-hmm.
That's why
you need to have metrics of some kind.
Kinda. It's a good way to. I like to think of it more like you need to have a foundation built before you can really start building your own understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has to operate from the same little baseline.
Yeah.
Or start from there before they can get into the higher concepts. And that trying to implement something that you do understand, but maybe you're trying to build a rafter before you built your foundation.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter how well the instructions are written if you can't speak Chinese.
Yeah.
Well, you might not. Maybe you can read it.
That's true. To be fair, when I took French, I couldn't speak it great. I could write it, but I couldn't really understand exactly what I was writing. It was like I understood the
like the Chinese room.
Techniques of it, but I couldn't understand it fluidly. Yes.
All right.
But yeah, so it's used in marketing a lot because
propaganda.
And propaganda, yeah, because the more you sort of pound people with the same information, the more likely they are to start introducing it into their general ideology, and then it becomes a part of their identity.
The phrase that pops in my head was from Brave New World.
Mm.
Everyone goes to 1984.
Yeah.
But I think Brave New World is just as horrifying. Because it's more plausible.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the phrases in that book that's used quite often is a gram before a dam.
A gram before a dam.
Yes. Specifically, a gram of soma
Mm-hmm.
before you start cursing.
Okay.
Just to calm you down. So you don't need to curse, because then you're happy, because you're on drugs.
Ew.
And it makes the character, the point of view character at the time, is like, this makes no sense. But that's the whole point of it. It's to be easy to remember, so you can quickly fall into it and just take your damn soma.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a mnemonic device.
Blood and soil.
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
A slogan.
when you think about it,
It's a slogan that seemingly explains everything and is easy to fall into.
Yeah, and we had somebody who warned us against that. It's one of my favorite quotes ever by Edward R. Murrow. Our major obligation is not to mistake slogans for solutions.
Yeah.
well, I just had a thought that propaganda and marketing aren't really that different at all. They're just selling a more of a intangible product.
Yeah, I mean, propaganda is marketing.
Yeah, it's just marketing for a corporate entity or for a state entity rather than a corporate one.
I would say that when I think propaganda, I mean, most people think of like state, but you can make propaganda for just about anything.
I make propaganda all the time.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I mean, claiming that you have the best coffee in the world is a form of propaganda, especially if it's basically just goat piss.
Yeah.
Okay.
Propaganda is actually a good example because it's a perfect example of cognitive ease at work.
Yeah, I want to address what Nick just said. That, claiming to have the best coffee in the world, even if it's goat piss. You can't do that for it to be good propaganda. Good propaganda isn't necessarily telling flat-out lies. Because someone's going to taste the best coffee, and if it is literal goat piss, they're going to know it's not coffee.
Yeah.
But you can always imply that the only people who don't like it are the plebs who can't appreciate good coffee.
Yeah, but
That type of propaganda has worked on things that taste fucking terrible.
yes, that's true, but it still has to be the thing.
Like Hershey's chocolate.
True.
It can't be literal goat piss and say it's coffee.
I don't know. Remember that episode of Bullshit where they had those people in the restaurant and they were giving them like normal
TV dinners that
Yeah,
have been
TV
shaped
dinners.
pretty.
that had been shaped pretty and they thought it was great. It's like, it's still the thing, but it is not at all what they told them it was.
Yeah.
Right.
Or the bum wine that was... They used the tasting notes from the world's most expensive bottle, but when they were giving them Chateau de Caux, Castle of Ass wine.
All right. You're right. If the people you're marketing it to don't know the difference, then you can get away with that. A good example of that is olive oil. Olive oil in the United States is all rancid. It's all rotten. You go to Italy and taste the olive oil they serve there, it's going to taste a lot different. And you come back to the States and it's like, yeah, this is wrong. This is all wrong. Why do we eat this?
Why is it rancid?
It's just it's easier to stockpile rancid olive oil than it is to keep it fresh. And people will keep the same bottle of olive oil on their shelf for months and months and months.
It's true.
Olive oil is actually a kind of fruit juice.
So it should be refrigerated?
No, it should be used as quickly as possible.
Oh, yeah. See, I don't. I mean, I use it a fair amount, but I don't refrigerate it, and it just sits on my counter.
I prefer to use animal fat.
For some things, I feel like I'll use the rancid olive oil because I know the rancid olive oil. I haven't tasted actual olive oil, at least I don't think I have.
That's actually we keep going to kind of like quotes and phrases and things. The devil you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's another good example of the dangers of cognitive ease.
The devil, you know.
Yeah, you go for you go for the bad thing that you understand over the good thing that you don't.
Yeah, fear of change.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what it is. That's what it exploits. It's like an idea is introduced to somebody, and right off the bat, most people are going to sort of reject it. Unless they have this. I don't know if this is a real bias or not, or if there's a name for it, but I certainly have noticed it, where people are much more likely to take information that they read themselves, no matter where it came from, and just believe it because they feel like they discovered it themselves, and they feel smart when they discover something new that they didn't know before. That's why misinformation spreads so easily. It's because so many people are just finding it on their own on the internet, right? And because they found it, there's like a self-bias of some kind there, where it's like they found it, so it must be true. And it's the only way I can really think to describe that. But we've all experienced that with people, where they'll read some article and then they'll talk to you about that article as if it's a fact. And they only read the one article about it, and they probably maybe couldn't even tell you where the source of that information was. But it didn't necessarily matter. Right? But then that same person, if somebody else were to have read it and then told them about it, that person is then going to be less likely to believe it because it's coming from somebody else, and they don't get to feel the smart feelings because they didn't figure it out themselves.
I recently had
They don't get the brain worms.
Yeah.
I recently had that particular feeling. I was arguing with someone about the nature of pharmaceuticals in the U.S. They felt so smart sharing a .edu .edu link when at the end of it, one of the sources was linked to fucking TikTok.
Yeah.
You're taking this as gospel truth, and also linking, well, one of those federal organizations, and I haven't trusted the federal government since I read about MK Ultra, or about how the fact that
What was your source on MK Ultra?
I don't trust anything I hear that comes from the federal government. I know they're a bunch of crooked fucks.
Yeah, but did you hear about MK Ultra from the federal government, or what? What was your source?
Good point. Could be PSYOP. You never know when the glowy's going to glow.
New MK Ultra Crystal.
My favorite part of, or my favorite part of MK Ultra, that whole thing was Operation Midnight Climax. And I can remember where I got this from. It was Answers from Joe. Right.
Sounds legit.
YouTube channel.
Yeah.
He's a science communicator. It was a CIA mindfuck experiment trying to trap people with recordings of them screwing hookers. And it was perfectly named.
Yep.
Operation Midnight Climax.
I mean, when it comes to stuff like that, once you get... Well, the reason I was thinking about this not long ago was because I was thinking about like how people lose... How they tend to lose like autonomy, or they just sort of let it drift away from them. I don't really know how else to describe that, but it's related to that problem of people not being discerning enough with easy information that they discover themselves. It's all kind of related like that. You get most people, they'll find something, they'll read it, they'll read a book, and we also have like a book bias too. It's like people think that books are just infallible because they're books. It's like, no, but then there's Mein Kampf, so shut up.
There's also
Books are not beyond reproach just by nature of being books.
or L. Ron Hubbard's his book on nuclear physics,
Yeah.
which is a joke in the physicists community.
I'm sure it is. I've heard of it. But yeah, so that'll happen, and then like if you're not discerning about the information that you're taking in yourself, and you're only discerning about the information that other people are telling you, and for one thing, you're not acknowledging the fact that when you read something, it's somebody else telling you something. But when you can distance yourself from the source that way, we engage with it as if it's more legitimate as a result of that. When it's not.
I
tried to read Das Kapital.
I mean, that's
I couldn't get past the first chapter.
It's that thing that, or it's, I suppose, that same effect. That is the reason Eli Lilly and Lockheed Martin lost billions in stock price, because people weren't being discerning with their information.
Yeah.
You can dissect the Marxist theory of value just with thought experiments. You don't even need real world information. It's just
It's all a priori.
Yeah.
Wow.
His entire theory of value is a priori.
Well, yeah. I mean,
It's there is an absolute value. Everything has absolute value.
that's his idea that
Yeah.
everything has absolute value.
Yeah, and
But-
the amount of value is based off the amount of work that goes into getting it.
Okay, but what's your unit of measurement here, Mr. Marx?
Other commodities.
What?
So, would the water in a drowning man's lungs be valuable because he had to climb a mountain to get into that body of water?
Well, the value of any manufactured good or commodity is related to the amount of labor it took to make it. The value of anything else is directly related to it. It's like 1 ton of feathers is worth like one gram of gold, which is worth a few hundred pounds of iron, and it's always true.
No.
Okay, but who's deciding this shit?
Marx.
Okay, yeah, well, fair enough, I guess.
Yeah.
Just what I expect from a guy who couch surfed most of his life.
Well, he's gonna spend this Marx guy. He's gonna spend the rest of his life trying to figure out what everything's value is, so that he can tell everybody.
Well, it's you can see it for when you remove it from any actual exercise, it's clean and concise, and it makes sense because that's how the market works, right? But
Well,
when you actually try to put it into practice,
as we talked about,
Turns to doo-doo.
as we talked about before, just because a system is coherent and cohesive even doesn't mean that it's right.
right? Yeah,
Yeah. The magic system works, but guess what? Magic doesn't exist.
yeah. You can annihilate Marxian theory of value just with like kitchen analogies.
Doesn't it fall apart pretty quickly just because the making an apple tart?
Yeah, that kind of thing. Thank you, Heinlein.
Or, gumbo. If you keep burning the roux, you're fucking it up.
Yeah,
But if you've never burned your roux, you've never made gumbo.
you've never made a roux.
Yeah.
Not all things, not all roux go into gumbo. It's just all the roux that I make go into gumbo.
Yeah,
Unless it's a blonde roux. I've made a few blonde roux.
but gumbo always has a roux.
Not necessarily. It always should have a roux, in my opinion. But that's
Right.
that's actually some measure of contention in the gumbo community.
Yeah.
On our next a la carte episode, contention in the gumbo community.
You'll rue the day.
Good God.
War of the Gumbonauts.
Well, anyway,
Yeah, getting back to cognitive ease.
Or cognitive fluency. Fluency.
I think part of the cognitive ease thing comes down to human tribal bias.
yeah.
Just we humans like to be part of tribes.
Yep.
They do. It's hardwired into us because those that didn't like being parts of tribes kind of died, so they didn't reproduce and yeah.
We settle. We in a society we can kind of afford to at least a certain extent to give everyone else the benefit of the doubt that they're doing the things that they need to do so that society doesn't collapse, and then we just sort of slide into whatever rut we've sort of dug for ourselves, and all the information that we take in is usually somewhat related to that rut. It doesn't usually go that far out of that rut.
Can you stop using the word rut? It means something entirely different to people who are into zoology.
Well, I'm
Or
sorry.
people who fuck deer.
That community has way too much crossover.
He majored in animal husbandry till they caught him at it.
Would it be animal wifery? Oh well.
I mean, in the biblical sense.
He done stole my pig wife. That's a good name for a punk band.
So, yeah.
Pig wife.
Yeah. I do see what you mean.
I'm trying to just think of, in my own life, the cognitive ease that it's like, and maybe this is a symptom of how hard it is to break from that kind of thinking, but I think of the areas that I do feel passionate about, and I mean, we'll just go with Second Amendment. It's people think Garrett, they think Second Amendment, at least in our little friend group. I'm sure at some point.
No, you're the gun guy.
Yeah, I'm the gun guy. So I've plenty of times, especially over the past year or so, tried to, okay, if I were not raised around guns, if I didn't already have a positive view of them, just try and kind of Descartes, do the Descartes thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just let's assume I know nothing about them. Would I still be in favor of people being armed? That is very hard to do.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, to divorce yourself from the passion that you have for a particular topic, to see if you would still to see if you would still make decisions as if you knew more about it than you did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think a lot of people continue to do that. I think that's what I'm trying to get at here, is that we need to stop doing that.
Yeah.
It's not very good. You're basically outsourcing your agency to whoever can court the dumbest parts of your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what it boils down to. And you don't want to be that susceptible to bad information.
Maybe you don't want to be.
I have plenty of people courting the dumbest parts of my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's Ted doing, by the way?
Huh?
How's Ted doing, by the way?
I'm more just talking about the sheer quantity of hentai I look at.
Uh-huh. So
I don't know if dumbest is the best description.
Yeah, not for that. It's not really the dumbest part of your brain, but it's I don't know, maybe the laziest.
Oh,
I don't really know what to.
No, it's not
that.
really lazy, because it's really trying. It's no, you need to do that. You need to do. It's constantly trying to push.
Yeah.
It's always in activity. It's not really lazy. It's more the. I keep wanting to say the primitive part of your brain.
That and man.
Join the tribe. Join the tribe. Join the tribe. Join the tribe.
That and I can't really enjoy something if it's poorly drawn.
No.
So it's not really the dumb part. I'm constantly dissecting how well something is done.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the opposite of what I'm talking about. You're actually making the effort to break down what it is that you're engaging with, so that you don't just like it because it's easy to like it, or like it. A big one is liking it. You were talking about tribalism, liking it because the people around you that you associate yourself with, whatever your group identities are, they have decided that it's part of the group identity to enjoy this particular thing, and you've got a life, you're trying to do all this other shit, and so you're just going to sort of like, you know what, yeah, sure, whatever, and then you let it in, and then it starts to poison you, basically. It spreads, and then suddenly you believe it, and then suddenly you're willing to fight somebody about it, and you don't even really understand it that well. You just know that your friends your friends at least pretend they know what it is, and they've all agreed that it's a good thing, and so you're not really defending the idea, you're defending the people, the group that you have identified yourself with, because you're
defending the tribal identity.
Yeah. You're defending the tribal identity, and you don't want to end up there.
Sometimes you have to, but that's...
If you have a good reason to be there, sure. And, sometimes you have to. I feel like that falls into that category of you've been through the reasons that you're a part of this group, and you're willing to defend it because you at least believe that you have good reasons. You've done the legwork, the cognitive legwork, or whatever you want to call it.
You're the Cicero's new man.
Yes. Yeah, you're not just sliding into the group and hoping nobody notices that you don't really know what they're talking about.
For those not familiar with Cicero's New Man, Cicero was almost obsessed with the creation of the new Roman.
Mm-hmm.
One not born in Rome, wasn't raised around Rome, but was introduced to and explained and embraced the ideals of the Roman Republic, and took to them with a strong vigor to become Roman.
Mm. Well, it was about becoming an idea that you thought
Or
was really
embodying
good.
the Roman ideal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's taking the value
Of their own choice.
Yeah.
That is
It's taking the value of what it is that you want to become and stripping the tribalism away from it. It's like you may not be born Roman, but there is a citizen identity or something along those lines to being Roman, and though that identity is made up of ideas, and that's what you're latching on to. Like, you're looking at the ideas and you're breaking it down, and you're like, okay, this is me, this is what I like, and you don't have to be Roman, you just have to embody those things.
Isn't that
And by doing so, you become Roman.
Yes.
In Cicero's mind.
Yes.
Isn't that kind of like the modern... isn't the American dream basically Cicero's New Man in the New World?
In theory,
Yeah.
I would say yes. In practice, we've been really bad at that.
There have been a lot of cases where someone strives to become American and they just kind of... either they fuck it up or an American fucks it up.
Or we just don't let them in because,
Yeah.
they don't look like whatever you think an American looks like.
That's silly.
When I think American, I am an American. And I don't embody this, but when I think American, what does an American look like? I think of a guy who weighs close to 300 pounds
Yeah.
wearing a football jersey.
Yeah, ours are similar. I think when I watch the Triplets of Belleville, I got a sense of what like the first image I get of an American, which does not fit me at all, and I do not embody it at all. But it's a really fat dude in a Hawaiian shirt with binoculars and a pamphlet, and like a straw hat. Mm-hmm. He's a tourist in Paris.
I mean, I love Hawaiian shirts, and I do like straw hats. But would I wear that in Paris? No. I wouldn't wear that in Paris.
I wouldn't visit Paris to begin with. I'd rather visit Marseille.
I'd visit for a short time, but I wouldn't want to stay there for very long.
I mean, I'd feel like I'd have to go to the Eiffel Tower. Just to see the Eiffel Tower, just because that's what you do.
Yeah.
Well, apparently they hate it. The Parisians, they think it's a fucking eyesore.
I mean, it is. They're not wrong.
It's ugly. They gotta purdy it up a bit.
I think they should put, like a UFC cage match.
Oh, yeah.
Cage in the bottom of it. And like 4 or 5 5G antennas coming off of it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
There you go.
And maybe put some apartments inside with like just big curtains coming down so they can have some privacy. You can do all sorts of things with the Eiffel Tower.
Tesla coil?
Why not?
Red alert style.
Yeah, you just got to have 3 Russian guys in electrified suits zapping it, and then you can kill anything on the map.
I'm
That
just
was a
going to
great
go to
match.
the top and use just whatever the point is at the top. I'm going to open a wine bottle with it.
Yeah.
That is strikingly French.
Only twist off.
Oh, God. And then I will ski down on baguettes. Well, I think that's about it. We're about 30 seconds out from the 30-minute mark. We talked about cognitive easing.
And a whole bunch of other random shit.
And a whole bunch of other random shit, but it went well, I think. We sort of circled back, and we had some fun here at the Arbitrarium, and we embodied the namesake a little bit more than we usually do.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It is
Good
the
episode.
lubricant by which things are inserted into your brain.